What would you think if I told you that in my hand I'm holding right here a knife that is made by a really well-known US knife maker that I'm sure you all know and love, and it's rated for medium to heavy duty use for a pocket knife, and it's budget priced at like way under 50 bucks. That sounds pretty good, right? You might want to know a little bit about that. I would. But here's the best part. If you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to give this knife away to one of you guys at no charge at all. Free giveaway. Stick around and find out how to get it. Hey friends, Pete from KnifeUp.com here. Thanks for joining us. Here on this channel we do reviews on knives and outdoor related activities, and we also just do articles, helpful articles on outdoor activities, things you would use a knife doing. So as always, down below in the description there are notes and there are links that you want to check out. But for now, let's get right into the review.
Turn down for what?
Let's do this.
All right, everyone, there is a shot of the Cold Steel ProLite clip. As always, we try to give you as much information as we can in as short a time period as we can, so just if you'll bear with my fast talking and lots of information being thrown at you. Let's get right into it. This is basically an entry-level knife from Cold Steel. It's really affordably priced. The MSRP is around 50 bucks, but you can get it closer to half that now on Blade HQ and Amazon. It's rated by Cold Steel as kind of a medium to even heavy duty folding knife, though it's not that big. So that's kind of a good thing, although it's kind of stiff, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, about how it, both how it opens and how you lock it and or unlock it rather. It's designed by Andrew Demko, for those of you who are fans, so something to keep in mind. Let's just jump right into some of the specs. The blade is 4116 stainless German steel. It's high satin polished and it's cryo quenched, which really just means that during the forging process it's cooled very quickly with liquid nitrogen, all the way down to like over 300 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's really to increase the hardness and overall strength. It's a clip point. This particular one is a clip point. The ProLite does come in a drop point and a tanto as well. So the blade is 3.5 inches long, and it does have some swedging. If you're not sure what swedging is, most of you know that, I'm sure, but just along the very top, you can hardly see it. I'll try to bring it up close here. Right along the top, still hard to see. It would be as though it's begun the sharpening process on the top, as though you wanted to make, let's say, a double-edged knife. And so let's say I took a file like this, if my finger was a file, and I started to file the top edge to make it slightly sharp, but then I never really finished it. Okay, that's what swedging would be, and it not only does it look cool, but swedging really helps a knife that has, let's say, multi-units, like in a Swiss Army knife, where you got a bunch of things opening and closing. It just allows things to pass by each other, one blade past another, a little bit easier. So that's part of the reason for swedging. It's hardly visible on this knife. The jimping, it's kind of weird because most knives have along the spine of the blade, there's some jimping. There's none on this knife. Instead, what you have is three, you can see them here right where my thumb is. There's 3 indentations right along the back. It's kind of weird, I haven't seen that before. I wouldn't say it's terribly useful, but neither is it a problem. So there it is. That's the jimping on this particular knife. Sort of the sharpness factor of this knife compared to others is exceptional. Now, even though 411 stainless is a softer steel, which is, you know, not great in the eyes of many, it won't even really hold an edge as much as AUS 8, but it does sharpen really easily, all right, like with any soft steel. But here's the thing, see if you can see this here. I know that using a piece of paper to test a knife and cut it, it's kind of sort of cheating because paper is so light, or so, you know, it doesn't exactly tax your knife blade that much. But I use, whoops, look at that. I use paper just as a standard, like photocopy paper as a standard with all my knives to do a cut test. And of course, they all cut it really well. It's not a formidable object to cut, but you can still tell when one cuts a little bit easier than another. And that's certainly the case with this one. This one cuts probably easier than any of them that I've ever seen. So it doesn't matter what angle it's one of the easier ones to cut. It just sliced through really, really nicely. And I've done a bunch of tests. I've had the knife for a couple of weeks, and it just did a really, really good job in cutting through that, the paper, the very first time. Now, of course, it'll cut through. I can impress you by showing you all kinds of, rope cutting tests and all that, and it'll cut as well as anything when it's fairly new. I haven't used it a lot. I haven't put it through, like I haven't, jammed it in everything and tried to make it dull, because I know that it will get dull fairly easily because it is a softer steel. So just telling you, just fair warning, you'll have to sharpen it a little bit more, but if you don't use it like crazy every day, it's not of a huge consequence, the fact that this is a softer steel. Right? It's not that big a deal, in my opinion, of course. So the handle is a glass-filled nylon. It's nothing too special or fancy, but it is light. And it does come in blue and black options. Obviously, this one's black. And it's, I'm just looking at this here. I've been wanting to talk about this. Here's the back lock or lockback mechanism. It's very, very tough. This has got to be the toughest knife I've ever reviewed that has this lockback here. It's just, man. So I've been working on it over the last couple of weeks, and it's gotten better. But when I first got this knife, I would press the lock in the back as far as I thought I should, which is pretty much all the way I possibly could, and the blade still wouldn't disengage. And even right now, there, okay, that was better. It's kind of hard to see with the video. You really do have to test it with your thumb, but it's really, really tough. And also, when you shut it, before you even have it shut, fairly early in the process, it clips shut, like it just pulls shut. It's got a pretty strong spring, and it's not a knife you can flick out. It's just, you can do that. I'm not like a expert blade flipper outer, but there are knives like the Spyderco paramilitary, for example, that it's just not that difficult to flick them open. So this one, you're not really going to do that. It's really, really tough. So here's another interesting thing with cold steel. If you look at the very back here, the thumb studs, here, I'll bring it up really close, hopefully that's in focus. They are, one of them is out farther than the other. In fact, the funny thing is that I'm not sure really why they did this. It's just one of cold steel's things, I guess, and it's really right hand biased. So I can, with my right thumb, my right hand, it's a lot easier to push it open than with my left hand, although just barely. It's not like it's a huge, huge deal. But here's the funny thing. If you look real close here, right where my thumb is, on the thumb stud, there's a slot as though it's telling you that you can use a screwdriver to move it back and forth. It sure looks like you can. It looks like a screw. It's got thread and everything. The reality is that you can't do that. At least not as far as I tried. I tried pretty hard. Maybe I'm missing something, but I turned it as much as I could, and yeah, it didn't move. So anyway, the clip itself is for right and left hand use, but you can't go to both ends. You can't go over here with it. It's just on the one side of the clip. So it's going to be tip up carry only. All right, so I'm just going to give you a quick verbal outline of the spec sheet. The overall length from tip to the back of the pommel, 8 inches. It's actually about 7 7/8 according to my measurement. The blade length is 3.5 inches and the cutting edge is about 3.25 inches. The blade thickness measured along the spine there is about 3 millimeters or so, or 0.12 of an inch. And of course, as I mentioned, the blade material itself is 411 stainless German steel, and it's I didn't mention earlier, it is a hollow grind on the blade, but just barely. It's nothing too major, but enough to see. You can see the grind marks there. The handle length is 4.5 inches, and of course the material I mentioned earlier, glass-filled nylon, and the weight is around 3.2 ounces. It is available for or ready for right and left-hand use, as you can tell by the clip. On this side and this side you can change them, but you can't move the clip down there. So in any case, any way you cut it, if you're carrying it in your pocket, it's going to be tip up carry. It's made in Taiwan, which means less and less to me these days. It matters more how they're made rather than the physical geography of where they're made. You know, as we all know, I think most people know that Apple makes a lot of their stuff in actually a number of places in the Far East, and China being one of them, and yet the quality is great because it just depends on what your quality controls are and how much the American company takes control of it. So anyway, there's my little spiel on that. Of course, the best use of this particular knife is an everyday carry. And then in your jeans would look something like that or so. So like most knives, it wouldn't look too different, fairly inconspicuous. The clip is certainly adequate. It's not as long as some, but you know, works just as well as any, really. So thanks for those pants. We're done with that. All around there's a tiny sharpening choil, barely visible. See if you can see it there. It's right along right at the bottom. Very small. Okay, so overall our impression is that it's a decent weight for a heavier duty knife in a folding option. It is tough to open compared to many other knives, actually any other knife that we've ever reviewed that has a lockback. Actually, it's none or even close. This one is the toughest by far to close, but it's not really an option, or it's not really an issue, rather, for how I use my knife. I'm not using it in any scenario where I need to open and shut it quickly or impress somebody. I'm just using it on the campsite and in the outdoors. And I'm not talking about serious bushcraft in the backwoods. I'm talking at a campsite, on a canoe trip, that kind of thing. So it's great for that use, for, you know, shaving tinder from kindling, campsite use, any other sort of wood whittling use. And we also really like the thinness of the handle. That's kind of a big thing for us. This one's less than 1/2 inch, and we really like that. And the clip is small, so it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't take up most of the length of the handle or a lot of the length of the handle. Like, for example, just real quick here, here's the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, and you know, look at the difference in the size of the clip. It's not huge, but it's significant enough, and it's I mean, it's just longer and bigger, which is not a huge problem. I would never say it's a problem, except it can only be a good thing if you can get a clip that's as small as the cold steel one that does the job as well as it does. So anyway, that's my initial impressions of the ProLite from Cold Steel, the ProLite clip. All right, thanks for joining us, guys, for our review on the Cold Steel ProLite clip. Hey, earlier in the video I said I was going to give this away to somebody for free. I'm going to do that really, really simple. All I need you to do is to leave a comment below on why you would like the knife. I don't care if it's a noble reason, like, you know, it would be a legacy to your grandfather who loved cold steel or something. I don't care. Maybe you just have a thrill, get a thrill out of getting something for free. I don't care. Any reason is good enough for me. Just leave a comment below and I will try to contact you. Hopefully I can contact you with the information you leave in your comment. I don't have an official software package that I use for draws or anything like that. Maybe I will in the future, but right now we'll keep it simple and I'll try to track you down somehow. You can always leave a message at knifeup.com as well. We appreciate you stopping by and joining us for our reviews, and we hope to see you next time. And until then, stay sharp.